fans, are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Double Twist. Thank you always for joining me. Once again, today, the Minnesota Wild do have the new general manager. I did talk about him very briefly on the last show. I wish I gave him more credit on the last episode. I deeply apologize. I was like, Tom Fitzgerald, Don Waddell, blah, 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 Dean Lombardi. And, well, Tom Fitzgerald wasn't really allowed to interview. They figured if you want to give him the job, just give him the job. That being the New Jersey Devils. The assistant general manager was Tom Fitzgerald there. He finished second last year. They figured, hey, you went through all the interviewing process last year. If you're going to hire him, hire him. Otherwise, just leave us alone, basically, because it's almost time to start the season. Jim Rutherford of the Pittsburgh Penguins was a bit more open about letting Bill Guerin interview for the job. The general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins allowing the assistant general manager Bill Guerin, who we'll get back to in a moment. And, of course, again, Dean Lombardi. That never came to anything, unfortunately. And Don Waddell ended up using us for leverage, which we all expected, but you never know. What the hell? The Carolina Hurricanes owner, kind of weird, didn't really believe in contracts, which... Okay, that makes sense. Not. So the Minnesota Wild do center on a guy who I think will be a passionate leader for this franchise, like Tom Fitzgerald could have been if he was hired last year, that type of thing. This guy might end up being the better guy at the end of the day. He was an actual captain, as was Tom Fitzgerald and everything, yes. Michael Russo, locally of The Athletic, of course, loved Tom Fitzgerald. He said he would have hired him right away. Part of the problem last year was the tunnel vision, is they pretty much were like, we want Fenton, but let's interview all these other guys just in case. And Fitzgerald wowed them, but apparently they still went with Fenton anyway. Maybe it was destiny that the Wild would endure a 15-month tribulation with Paul Fenton and wound up with an even better guy. And again, Bill Guerin, who has been a captain throughout the league for many years. The best, he would be the best right shot forward on the Wild right now, that's for sure. Anything during Bill Guerin's career, pretty much, except maybe the last second. Though, of course, he was clutch and very, very integral part of the Pittsburgh Penguins all the way up to the very end of his career. Which is what's really funny, though. He also went to Boston College. We got another guy from Boston College. Remember the jokes I was making about Paul Fenton drafting 5 Boston College players the last 2 years? And then you get 4 of them in this year's draft. And Bill Guerin is from Massachusetts, and he also played at Boston College and all that. But really, the Massachusetts connection is probably the only similarity between Paul Fenton and Bill Guerin. Thankfully, obviously, very established career, very physical guy, captain of the Edmonton Oilers, captain of this team, captain of that team, Stanley Cup with the New Jersey Devils, with Jacques Lemaire, another connection with Minnesota, in a sense in the past. Well, because Jacques Lemaire was the Wild coach for quite a while there, about 9 years, taking the Wild to the Western Conference Finals, where we ran into Jean-Sebastien Giguère. But no, a very prolific career. 1,200 games, just unbelievable. 400 goals, 400 assists. Almost nobody's done that. United States native, of course, like I mentioned. Massachusetts again. And that's probably, again, hopefully the only similarities between Paul Fenton and Bill Guerin. Completely different, more open-minded, more of a team guy. To think Paul Fenton was a hockey player, and yet he's this close to the vest, stay the bleep away from me type of guy. So I guess he meant well in protecting the players of the injuries, but he went way the heck overboard with all that, where Bill Guerin is looking to be more collaborative, kind of like Gerson Rosas, who is across the river in the Minneapolis area versus the St. Paul area where the Wild will skate, as they have for 20 years now already, if you can believe that. But very illustrious career for Bill Guerin. And I wish I talked about him more on the last episode. It was like immediately after the last episode when we were talking about the firing of Fenton and the future and all that. Ron Hextall, Don Waddell, Bill Guerin, who was mentioned, and then I just kind of moved on, which is a shame, because I remember last year we kind of looked at it that way too, but it's like, but that's Bill Guerin, though. I mean, he was really something. He was a hell of a player. I mean, I remember him very well, and he plays a position of need for the Wild. Can he suit up? Nah, we'll leave that alone. Hopefully he's in an even better position, ultimately leading the entire franchise rather than just the team out on the ice. Multiple 30-goal scorer, multiple 40-goal scorer. I mean, just unbelievable career. Well, actually, only once at 4. Actually, nope. He did split the season. Yeah, one of those years where he still wound up with 40. goals. It was just split over a couple of different teams there. Oilers and Bruins. Yep, exactly 40 goals. It was back-to-back seasons. Oilers, where he was the captain, and then he was a couple years at the Bruins, about a year and a half there with the Boston Bruins. 40 goals exactly, 41 goals, career high with the Bruins. So he represented his home state very well in the short time he was there. Wow, 40 goals. 40 goals in each of the seasons he was there. Unbelievable. Career highs of 66, 69, this type of thing. So he was more of an even guy. He didn't get a trillion assists to go along with his huge goals, but he got some, and he was very clutch. At the end of the day, though, it's not about Bill Guerin, the player, even though it's very interesting to note how good of a player he truly was. Fenton, more of a third, fourth line kind of guy, bottom six guy in his career. For some reason, I thought he was a defenseman, but no, he was a forward. He was like, third, fourth line kind of guy who had a good season or two here and there, but kind of in and out role player. Risebrough, obviously a very valuable piece, defensive forward for the Montreal Canadiens and the Calgary Flames. Played his whole career in Canada. Did Mr. Doug Risebrough, who couldn't draft he couldn't draft anybody. It was the worst ever. Fletcher, obviously successful in the draft for the most part. He was okay. His trades are what really kind of did him in. Terrible trades. I mean, a million bad trades. And then Paul Fenton pretty much stunk at everything, except maybe a couple of free agents signings were savvy. Eric Fair was okay. This and that. Zuccarello, we'll see, should be fine. Just kind of expensive and a no move. What the F is that? And, basically building up the AHL club, the Iowa Wild, a bit more was, I think, a good thing. Hopefully Bill Guerin kind of keeps focus on that a bit as well. But the atmosphere around this team is going to be completely different now. I do believe Mike Modano, business advisor, executive advisor for the Minnesota Wild on the business side of the equation, was part of the interviewing process, which I thought was freaking awesome. And you got the connection. Bill Guerin and Mike Modano, they played 3 years on the Stars. They played on 4 Olympic clubs, which is a big deal because you're basically all together traveling the world, basically. In those Olympic, in those Olympic games, pretty cool. I mean, that is a tight-knit group of guys, I'd have to say. And they get along very well. Again, both American ties, which is a big deal, I think. I had a feeling, it was like right after the show, I had a feeling, you know what, Bill Guerin's going to go way up to the top, isn't he? And, well, and you hear about his personality, his style, and all that. Obviously, what kind of player he was, and then you kind of bring that to the hockey ops, his leadership qualities, his team game, which is what this team needs in so many ways, in the locker room and in the executive office after what Fenton did. And, of course, the locker room hasn't been that good for a while. I mean, go ahead and say it's just rumors. It's just, it's just Michael Russo needling the club, picking on people. No, he's not. I think Russo knows what he's talking about. I think, and when I talked about it on the show a couple of times, Ryan Studer and the confidants and getting this coach fired and kind of, I need to be playing the most minutes in the NHL basically regardless of the situation, that type of stuff. That's been a problem in this team, and I got to think a guy who's been a captain forever, literally running your franchise, is going to help that. I got to hope so. He said some of that stuff might be hearsay. I don't know. I'll find out, that type of thing. That was during the press conference on Wednesday. Again, I'm a little late, but I'm not here to break news. I'm here to discuss news. I wouldn't mind breaking news, but I don't have a job as a reporter right now. And, yeah, quite frankly, I have to do my regular job first. First things come first, that type of thing. But absolutely, this guy has a chance to really change the atmosphere in all facets. He's very pro analytics, which is good. You need analytics today. You just have to. Whether you like it or not, you want to be old school on this, you want to be old school on that. You got to have analytics in your organization. You don't want to just push people away. And quite frankly, the analytics on a guy named Victor Rask weren't so good, and Carolina was thrilled to trade him away. Don Waddell kind of fleeced us twice in a way, but then again, you know what I mean? I think we got a great fit. I have some addendum and errata to do. That means correcting myself from the previous episode on a couple of things. I didn't talk so highly of Ron Hextall, and I regret that. Now, yes, there was a scorched earth approach with that team, but there's a reason for the scorched earth, and he drafted very well. He built the he was building up the farm system in a big way. It's just he wasn't showing on the ice yet because the players weren't there yet. And Mr. Hart, the goaltender, yeah, when I said they don't have a goalie, well, they didn't have a current goalie on the NHL roster, but Hart is one of the top prospects in the NHL. He's got a great future to be a great goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. So, again, I apologize to Ron Hextall of 1 in a billion chance he actually heard the show, or just people that maybe may think higher of Ron Hextall than I did. So, again, there was a scorched earth approach. There was fear of he had a little bit of a Fenton personality, too close to the vest. But other thoughts were that there may have been a bit of a country club thing going on in Philadelphia. And that's BS. You know, country club stuff, maybe like I thought might have been going on with Fenton, Studer, and Leopold just a little bit. Nudge, nudge. But luckily that came to a screeching halt when Leopold fired the guy, Fenton, abruptly. And, of course, clearly was not pleased with what was going on to a point of he was sitting there on the draft table. Literally, that's unbelievable. He was literally at the table next to next to Fenton on draft day. That's unbelievable. Because it's like, hey, basically like, listen to people. Listen, open your ears, Paul. Hey, Paul, open your ears. Where Bill Guerin is going to be, I got to think quite the opposite. You know, you don't want to worry about the whole pendulum thing. Just like every presidency, it's like the total polar opposite of this guy, that guy. Every head coach in the NFL, offensive-minded genius, but he just ignored the defense. The defense sucks. It's the worst defense ever. This guy's an idiot. He only drafts offense, and like Dennis Green, people looked at that. Then you bring in this guy, that guy. You go way hardcore on the defense. Now the offense really sucks. Let's go back to defense. And then sometimes you got to just say, you know what? Let's chill a little bit. You had Leslie Frazier, of course, of the Vikings. No offense at all, basically, all defense. But he wasn't even good at defense, so you end up getting a better defensive coach in Zimmer, that type of thing, rather than kind of swinging the pendulum too far one way or the other. Disciplinarian, nice guy. Disciplinarian, nice guy. Disciplinarian, nice guy. Where Guerin is probably kind of in the middle, because he's obviously a nice guy, but he was a tough guy, too. I mean, over 100 penalty minutes almost every season he played. I mean, that's a lot. That's a big, big number. 1,660 penalty minutes throughout his career. 1,263 games. Again, 429 goals, 427 assists. Nice and even. That's kind of cool. Though some of his prolific goal-scoring years, the assists a little below the goal scoring. That's why he didn't get like super high point totals like 89, 90, which he probably could have. But it is what it is. Shoot the bleeping puck. You know, and that's good. He probably could, again, help with the Ryan Donatos of the world out there. Other unique and amazing things about this man, Bill Guerin, which tells you he's a lot more humble than you got to think. A guy who made a lot of money, a guy who's been a team captain, a guy who's won 4 Stanley Cups, one with New Jersey, had some good seasons with Edmonton. He was the full-on captain with the Edmonton Oilers, the absolute leader for 4 years, the better part of 4 years there. Again, won a Stanley Cup, his second last season with the Penguins. After a couple of good years with the Isles, definitely much more. Well, it was like a year and a half. He got traded to the Penguins just in time for that team to make another cup run, and that time they were successful in the rematch after losing to Detroit the year before. They head into Detroit and win Game 7. They were the first team actually to win Game 7 on the road in many, many years. Now it's like no home teams ever win Game 7s anymore, which is the darndest thing. It's like gone completely. It's swung around full circle here, a complete 180, where nobody wins Game 7s at home. And, well, but Pittsburgh was the first one to kind of get that going, and Bill Guerin scored a pretty big goal down the stretch that helped the Pittsburgh Penguins ultimately defeat the Detroit Red Wings in the 7th game of the finals. 45 points, 78 games, very healthy, strong year, 21 goals in his final season with the Pens. But again, you go from this prolific guy who's gotten it done at every level, and then he goes, instead of jumping into the front office like assistant general manager right away, maybe one of the big assistant coaches with the club right away, boom, like a lot of these big name guys do. Scott Stevens, boom, assistant coach with the Wild right away, that stuff like that. Patrick Waugh, head coach of the, head coach, like right when he gets into the front office, he moves way up, this type of thing. Even though Patrick Waugh had been kind of in the organization, but bam, head coach. Bill Guerin, though, starts as a developmental coach, which is basically like Brad Bombardier and now Matt Hendricks' job, where you just kind of travel all over the place and do this and do that. Definitely shows a bit more humility. He just kind of gradually moved up. Years later, becomes the assistant general manager. In the last 5 years, assistant GM with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and eventually, ultimately, was involved in every single trade conversation with Jim Rutherford. It was a future Hall of Famer now. He is going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame when the time comes here. He's already achieved that role with the Penguins and the NHL in general. Worked with him on all those trades and all that information, all those big moments. And now here he is, the general manager of the Minnesota Wild. It was a long climb from 2010 till today. A long climb, about 9 years, kind of working his way up, and doing it the old-fashioned way, like somebody like I might do, who didn't play a single game in the NHL. You start off way, way down there. Or maybe a guy like Brad Bombardier, who didn't play a huge role. He was such a valuable player, though. He couldn't stay freaking healthy. Oh, I loved Brad Bombardier. Oh, I loved him. A lot of the intangibles that Spurgeon does, Jared Spurgeon, that's why I love him so much, but Spurgeon obviously stands out a bit more than Bomber did. But God, I love that guy. Brad Bombardier, one of my favorites all time with Minnesota. Bill Guerin worked his way all the way up. The humility, the honesty, and, you go from a guy who's just like, yep, Bruce is my coach, and Bruce is like, well, thanks for asking him. I didn't know that, actually, that I was going to be the coach next year, even though he's there. Bruce was like half joking, but yeah, it was like a nudge. Like, yeah, he wasn't really joking either. He was joking. He was saying it in a joking way, but like in an honest way as well. Clearly, not only did Bruce Boudreau and Paul Fenton not see eye to eye, they were like miles apart. I mean, we're talking oil and water. It was just ridiculous. Bruce Boudreau is a polar opposite type of person who's an open, honest guy. Paul Fenton's a guy who's just like got a noose around his neck every second. And that noose got too tight, and it didn't. Yeah, it did what nooses do to people when they're around people's necks. Basically, at the end of the day, forgive that. I don't really like to be too graphic, but that's kind of what happened to him in a lot of ways. He didn't help his cause at all. He dug his own grave, did Paul Fenton. Where this guy, very collaborative right out of the gate. Immense respect for Bruce Boudreau. Did you ever hear that once from Paul Fenton? Not even the introductory press conference. Seriously, I mean, just like the guys won at every level. He was basically saying was Mr. Bill Guerin about Bruce Boudreau during the introductory press conference. Amazing quote here, though. Later on, he told Fox Sports North that Bruce Boudreau. He said, "I don't know if they could have chosen a better person to lead our team." Where was it? Yep, he said that's the kind of leadership we need from up top, and that's pretty cool that Bruce Boudreau would say that. So mutual respect right out of the gate between these two guys. Big difference. It's a big difference. He said, I don't know if they could have chosen anybody better. And yes, you're saying the right things and all that, but at the same time, you could tell that's heartfelt and it's honest and all that, and that's who Bruce Boudreau is. Very cool. He didn't have like a guarded, like, good hire. I'm looking forward to working with him. Where it's, you could tell it's kind of like, oh, we'll see. This one very much has a chance to get somewhere, hopefully. It's all a wait and see type of thing. At this moment, again, it's going to be what it's going to be. Your team is going to be your team. Gradual little tweaks here and there like we always do. Very minor trade just took place, actually, on Friday. It's not showing here. I don't know why I had it. Boy. It was in here, and I lost it. But we'll leave that alone for the moment. I believe it was... that's right. Gustav Bjorman. Yeah, Gustav Bjorman was traded to the Florida Panthers. Is this the very first trade in Bill Guerin's history? I guess it's during his regime, but I wouldn't be surprised if acting general manager Tom Curvers maybe kind of finished this off, was kind of getting the conversation going. Future considerations. 7th round pick from Minnesota in 2015. Defenseman Gustav Bjorman off to the Florida Panthers for future considerations. Again, 7th round pick, so it kind of is what it is. Hopefully, best of luck to Gustav. Hopefully the Wild's future considerations of whatever they are end up being something, but it's pretty, it's what it is. It's very, very minor trade, but again, God bless Mr. Gustav there in his endeavors in Florida. Hopefully that works out well. More significant move, though, that I think people care about just a little bit in this town. Obviously, Yul Eriksson, he was a restricted free agent. He has inked a 2-year contract at age 22. Cap hits of 1.4875 the next 2 years. So kind of evened out literally there. Just under $3 million total in the 2 years here. Just under $3 million. So about, you know what I mean, 2.8 or so, 2.8, 2.9-ish for Yul Eriksson for 2 years here. Center of the third line. A lot of people believe that's where he's going to be this year, up and coming. The interesting line combination possibilities from Boudreau and such, with Cunnin as the second line center, which I think sounds pretty cool. Gives him a chance to get something done. Koivu as low as the fourth line, possibly. Fourth line center, obviously, or otherwise third line for Mikko Koivu, depending on his health. But yes, it's time for Koivu to move down into the bottom six. And he is in the final season of his contract, and more than likely, this is probably it. Or if you re-sign him, hopefully it's significantly less. It's no disrespect, just less. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe one more year with like $3 million or something. I don't know. I'm in no rush to sign him for a ton of money. I mean, look at Eric Stahl. Look at Eric Stahl, what he's accomplished, 3.25. I mean, okay, 3.25. So why sign Mikko Koivu to like $6 million again? So obviously, yeah, he's not going to get 5.5 with Minnesota again. So that just kind of is what that is. 5.5 a year, as much as Jason Zucker, who has a chance to still be a 30-goal guy. Zuccarello, again, 6 years for $6 million a year for 5 years. And again, no move clause, unfortunately. And again, Koivu also no move clause, but he always could waive it if it's the right team. Maybe he can go to the Pittsburgh Penguins or something, and they win the Stanley Cup for for Chris Porter. I bet Chris Porter just loved Bill Guerin. Probably sad to see him go, and it's tough too. It's tough, for a team like Pittsburgh right now, losing Bill Guerin just before September here. Ouch. So that's got to hurt a little bit. So I feel for all these teams. A lot of teams are kind of annoyed, I think, with this, seeing their guy possibly go and all that right before the season, because it's tough to replace an assistant general manager. It's just next man up. But again, it is what it is. Other opportunities for other people. That's the good part at the end of the day. It's going to be fascinating to see how Bill Guerin does it for the Minnesota Wild long term. Again, I love what he brings. And that's pretty much, at the end of the day, again, hopefully he can get in that locker room and kind of straighten things out. Of course, there's optimism when you have a guy like Matt Dumba coming back from injury. It's like addition from within right there. Jared Spurgeon's not sweating it. He says he'll basically, by the end of his contract here, he feels that he's confident in Bill Guerin basically being able to get to it when it's important, when it's time to get to it, hopefully as soon as possible. I'd have to say. Brodin has 2 more years, 4.1. So, wow, that was a long contract, and it's already almost done. Unfortunately, again, you're not going to see Greg Pattern moved. He'll be tough to trade, and I'm guessing Bill Guerin's not going to make any crazy move right now. He's looking to get to know the team. He's looking to restructure the staff, rebuild the staff. I mean, we're talking scorched earth here. You talk about Ron Hextall with the Philadelphia Flyers with a scorched earth NHL roster. You talk about Doug Risebrough with scorched earth everything. The roster, especially the AHL, the farm and all that, and overseas and all. There was almost nothing because he couldn't draft anybody. He was terrible with Doug Risebrough at drafting players. I mean, you look at his draft history, say hockeydatabase.com or hockeydb.com, whatever, and you look at Minnesota Wild draft history. And, it shows these names and all like links. You click on them, you can go to the player. But then there's the column next to them, which shows what they did in the National Hockey League. And there's countless players during the Doug Risebrough era where it was just flat out blank. Chuck Fletcher, there's a good number of players that made it to the NHL. Some of them successful, some of them not. But it was more of a mix, and it was more of like, okay, you got some players, including Matt Dumba. You signed Jared Spurgeon as a free agent. That was cool. You got him as a free agent. The Islanders just kind of let him go after being a 6th-round pick. Jonas Brodin was a good draft pick, not a great one. For as high as he was, he's good. I mean, and it is what it is. The top 10, just after the top 5, you're not necessarily going to get, a superstar. You might, but it's sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But at least you got a legitimate player who is not a bust at all at the end of the day. So there's things like that. And Bill Guerin, the most important thing here is, it's not just that Bill Guerin's going to be this genius and he's going to fix everything with his Houdini wand, whatever. It's about he's going to listen to everybody. It's not going to be a closed-minded type of thing. And, maybe Paul Fenton drafted extremely bleeping well. Because I think a lot of these drafts, or a lot of these picks that Paul Fenton made look like they have a chance to be pretty good. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to be open-minded, it's going to come back on you real quick. And Risebrough was pretty close-minded as well. And you look at the columns, you just scroll around that hockey database. It's pretty ugly. It's pretty ugly. And certain guys, okay, maybe like Lubomir Sekarich was already in his 30s. Guys like that. Other people, it's just a joke. They never did anything. They played a couple seconds in the NHL. But especially later on, like third round on or so, nobody played at all, or second round on, and eventually it was just first round on. You had first round picks that didn't make it at all. Risebrough was looked on as the kind of guy that I don't think a lot of people liked Doug Risebrough either. He was kind of Fenton-like a little bit. It's just but that was years ago where there wasn't as much talk about analytics. You didn't really hear that word ever back then. There was a Fiala drafted by Minnesota, 40th overall, and he never played a lick in the NHL. I mean, James Shepard, what a bust he was. See, it's not only that, he played 394 games in the NHL, but he was the 9th overall pick, and he scored 91 points. See, it's stuff like that. Your best draft pick in the 2006 draft was Cal Clutterbuck, a third-line right winger, who wouldn't look too bad in a Wild jersey, but that's okay. Andrej Fiala. There's a Fiala there. There's a Fiala. The Everett Silvertips, WHL, not a game. 40th overall pick. So there's a Fiala in Wild history, draft history. It's kind of funny. Scandella, above average. Kuma played one game. 23rd overall pick, one game. Colton Gillies was mediocre at best. I know, I kind of go over history maybe too much. There's always early indicators, though, of how good your general manager might be. The Nick Leddy draft was exciting, and the next thing you know, you trade him for Cam Bleep Barker. And then it's like, ooh. So clearly, I mean, he made some good picks in that very draft. Kemper was a decent goalie who ended up getting better and better over the years. Unfortunately, ended up moving to get, if he finally achieved like starting goalie status without us, with Arizona. Eric Halla, very good draft pick, blah, blah, blah. Jason Zucker, Larson didn't do anything. He's played a lot of games but hasn't done a whole lot as a second-round pick. Ballmer was a massive bust. Granlund was a really nice pick. Blah, 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 blah. Good trades, bad trades, this and that. Almost every time Mr. Fletcher made a trade, it wasn't good. But generally speaking, yeah, boy, there were some rotten drafts. 2013 was awful. Olofsson, Gabriel. Carson Soucy might be the best player in that group, and he hasn't gotten there yet. Tuck getting traded away, that was another bad trade. I mean, kind of a panic type of situation. You had to do something. You didn't want to lose Dumba, and that was a good move to not lose him. But at the same time, at the same time, it hurts. I mean, Alex Tuck is a nice player. It would have been nice if somehow, some way, we could have kept Tuck and Dumba. Right shot, right winger. Yeah, ended up being really good for Vegas, especially last year. But even the year they went to the final there, right away, solid player. Well, we can go on forever, this and that. Not a single player of the last three drafts, 17, 18, 19, has skated an NHL game yet, but that's the NHL draft. The Boldy pick by Fenton might end up being fantastic. Philip Johansson doesn't, I don't know. It's hard to say. He has nice little intangibles, but at the same time, no idea. The Kovanov pick, a lot of people love that one. He was ranked very high with another Athletic article where they're ranking the the farm systems out there. Kovanov considered the number 3 prospect by the writer there for the Athletic. Highly recommend you subscribe to it, by the way. Russo and all the others out there that cover the National Hockey League. And, of course, our favorite club, the Minnesota Wild. There it is, 22 farm system. Let's look at that for a minute because, well, I mean, these are guys for Bill Guerin to work with and possibly some of them trade them away, work with them, this and that. Kirill Kaprizov and Boldy are the top 2. And then to see Kovanov ranked number 3, that's pretty incredibly high. Corey Proman, yep, he's kind of an analytics guy that works for the Athletic. I'm kind of surprised he put Nico Sturm 4th, though. 4th? I don't know. Sam Henches, very good freshman year for St. Cloud State Huskies there. Right after Moscow left that club for the Gophers. Mason Shaw ranked 6th, but he got hurt again, and that stinks. Jack McBain ranked 7th. I don't know. Some of these guys are. Jack McBain didn't do that good last year, but, well, hopefully all these Boston College players that are starting their freshman year that Paul Fenton chose are going to end up being good. First off, we'll see. Believe he's going to Connecticut. Will Biden, yep, remember, he did pretty well in the AHL in the bottom 6 roles. They played some center and such. Played some right wing, some center for the bottom 6, and he was pretty solid. I mean, he got good. 29 points. He got better and better as the season progressed. He was acquired for Gustav Olofsson, if I remember correctly. who has done a whole lot of nothing for Minnesota other than get injured shoulders, basically. Matt Robson ranked 10th. Biden ranked 9th. First Dov ranked 8th. That was another pick this year. Louis Belpedio ranked 11th. I think that's kind of low. And I know he's going to have a hell of a time making the roster because a guy with his size and his game, he's an offensive player, is Louis Belpedio, even though he can be a bit of a two-way defense. And like he can play defense and everything. But you have two offensive guys ahead of him. Spurgeon, who's obviously a smaller guy, and he's a top 4. Even though you could argue he's the best defenseman on the Wild, you put Dumba ahead of him because of what he is. His prolific scoring capabilities. He's one of the best goal-scoring defensemen in the National Hockey League, if not number 1 overall, with that rocket shot and accuracy and the power and the ability that he has, quick release and everything. But Louis Belpedio isn't. They just say he has a chance to make the NHL, and it's like, oof. I think Belpedio has a chance to be a good player in the league, but again, it's the way the roster is situated that could make it challenging for Louis Belpedio. Because it's not like, okay, you get rid of Greg Pattern. Like, thank God he's gone. But Louis Belpedio is not going to be a physical defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman. You're going to probably have to have a physical guy. My counter to that argument, though, as long as he's with Nick Seeler, it shouldn't matter, right? Like, Nick Seeler's the physical guy. Why are you going to have two physical guys on the same line? But I mean, again, the bottom pairing, Belpedio is not going to be nearly as successful because he's not going to be on the ice. He's not going to be on power plays, this and that, if he's considered 5-6 defenseman. So there's that comeback as well. It's kind of a back and forth there. Brendan Dehame ranked number 12. Yeah, he has some ability. He's kind of like Zuccarello, where he plays on the right, but he shoots left, that type of thing. But he plays on the right as a natural right wing, but again, shoots left. So interesting there. Adam Beckman. Another the Boston College guys there. Gabo Kakinen ranked 14th. Obviously, we saw him be very, very, very up and down. But when he's good, he's unbelievable. He can get 3 or 4 shutouts in like a week when he's hot. He's just crazy. And then he gets the crap beat out of him at times. He evens out to be a pretty solid goalie who does have a chance to be a long-term National Hockey League goalie, but maybe the Wild picked some players. Maybe Fenton picked a couple of goalies here in this draft, particularly Hunter Jones, that could absolutely be the goalie of the future, along with Matt Robson, who I think has a legitimate shot to do something in the National Hockey League long-term. Ivan Ladnia ranked 15th. He's got some scoring ability, smaller guy who can shoot the puck, this and that. He's pretty solid, though. He's solid. He's solid in the puck battles and such. Connor Dewar. I thought he was ranked higher than this. So it's like certain guys, I don't know. I mean, this guy knows more than I do. He does. Connor Dewar, center, Everett, WHL. Gordeev, who was acquired. He's a defenseman who was acquired recently for, I believe it was a 7th-round pick from Toronto late in the season from Paul Fenton. Philip Johansson, number 1 pick in 2018, ranked 18th. Hunter Jones ranked 19th because they're not sure yet. Obviously, very early. He'll be a very interesting one right there with Connecticut. Simon Johansson ranked 20th. You could go on forever. Marshall Warren, Boston College defenseman, very prolific with the under 18 United States there. Really prolific. He's got a chance, but again, he's not consistent yet. But super duper young. Born just a few months before September 11th. Dmitry Sokolov ranked all the way down to 22nd. Definitely a prolific scorer, but sometimes he just doesn't keep himself in great shape. Matvey Guskov, that's an interesting one, I guess. He's an interesting one in a sense. I don't believe he was a draft pick. He was acquired along the way as a free agent. Yeah, he was not a draft pick. Brennan Mennel considered, well, we'll see. I'm not sure why they rank him so low, but it's hard to see him in the NHL because of his size, they're saying. But he was pretty effing good, though, for the AHL. And again, same situation for as Louis Belpedio. Both of them are right shot, blah, blah, blah. And you got Spurgeon and Dumba above them. So if Spurgeon does leave as a free agent, it's between Mennel and Belpedio to get that 3-4 role there, the second pairing for the defense, the right shot defenseman there, which could be something. Luke Johnson was acquired during the offseason. Yeah, 24 years of age. Still has a chance. Damien Giroux, he's ranked this far down. Wow. They say, Proman says, I like Giroux's sense and compete a lot, but I don't know if a 5'10" he has the speed for the NHL. So, yeah, there's always something like that where guys they have this, but they don't have this. They have this, but they don't have this. Nick Sweeney also not in the top 20-ish, which I'm kind of surprised. I think he's really good. Mr. Perlman says, I like his speed, skill, and compete, but don't know if his size. But if at his size he's dynamic enough, he was a good player on the national champion. Well, multiple national championships for Nick Sweeney. So he's got a chance to be something special, I think. I like Nick Sweeney an awful lot. He scored some clutch goals. We'll wait and see, though. Yep. I'm surprised Mason Shaw's ranked 10th, even though he was very good, and he's only 20, but multiple ACLs. He's got 3 ACLs. So, pretty crazy. I believe it's 2 on the left, 1 on the right, but yeah, it's 2 on one, 1 on the other, that type of thing. Kovanov, I'm very excited about. I hope he can achieve something special. So they're saying the entire organization, though, like guys that are in the National Hockey League as well, Perlman has Matthew Boldy ranked number 1 overall. And again, that could be a great pick by Fenton, but also if a guy falls in your lap and you don't take him, you're an idiot. So that's kind of a common sense pick there. Kevin Fiala, number 2 overall. Interesting. Even though, well, he's had some moments, but he wasn't good for us last year. And obviously they got that femur situation where it made him a very skittish player along the wall, where he basically avoids contact as much as possible. I understand, but eventually you're going to have to get past that, buddy. You're going to have to. You're in the NHL. You're not just playing peewees out there or roller hockey or whatever. But even roller hockey, they're pretty physical. Ryan Donato ranked 3rd overall, even above Kaprizov at this stage. But, well, Kaprizov needs to show up here in the United States first before we can get too excited. Luckily, Mr. Bill Guerin getting distracted with some noise above me. I don't know what's up with that. Bill Guerin already planning a trip out there to go see Kaprizov. So already planning that trip to go out and obviously meeting with the agent as well with Kaprizov. So that's good. Very cool to get things going because Kaprizov is eligible in April, as long as he doesn't sign a new deal behind our back here and we're screwed. But as soon as April, Kirill Kaprizov could be a member of your Minnesota Wild. Luke Cunnin ranked number 5. Jordan Greenway ranked number 6. Jule Eriksson Ek, ranked number 7, still at age 22. Alexander Kovanov, at 19 years of age, ranked number 8. Sam Henches, again, hopefully he has a really nice sophomore year with the St. Cloud State Huskies, and we'll see. He might be a really beautiful fit with the Iowa Wild for a few months after that. Maybe into next season, and we'll see. But who knows? Maybe he'll stay for his junior year. Fiala's got some prolific skating ability. He really does. But, boy, and his puck handling is fantastic. He's got the speed. He's got all the tools to be a really good player, offensively anyway. But, again, if he's going to be skittish and he's going to be off that little bit, he's not going to reach the potential he has. But, well, at least he'll be better than the Fiala that Doug Risebrook took years and years and years ago back in 2006 behind James Shepard. 40th overall. The draft never played a minute in the NHL. Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. But, yeah, the first trade during the Bill Guerin era has taken place, and it's basically Gustav Bierman for future considerations for the Panthers. So, yep, and again, I'm pretty sure that was Tom Curvers. I hope Bill Guerin keeps Tom Curvers on board. Everybody loves that guy, and he was a nice piece for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was a nice assistant GM for them during the Steve Yzerman era. Oh, boy, and that's a guy that the Wild could have had years ago. Hopefully, Bill Guerin is much more of the Steve Yzerman type, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is. Yzerman, no surprise, winds up with the Detroit Red Wings. I don't know if I talked about that or not, but yeah, he's the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. He literally left Tampa to go to Detroit, which everybody kind of knew. It was the worst kept secret in the NHL, and that's pretty much what took place there. I don't believe there's any new comments on Facebook. Just people are like, yay, we got him, and I agree. Again, I just want to say more and more apologies that I didn't talk about Bill Guerin more on the last episode. It's like I was just locked in on those other guys, and I figured, yep, I mean, we interviewed Bill Guerin last year, and maybe that's just, we'll just kind of interview him again. We'll see. Maybe he'll move a little higher, but he'll end up being one of the other guys. But probably should have hired this guy in the first place last season. It's just the whole tunnel vision, and that's where bringing in Mike Modano made the big difference. Mike Modano coming to this organization is extremely promising. Michael Russo wrote an article not long after the firing of Paul Fenton that he does believe that Mike Modano will move into hockey ops in the not-too-distant future, and especially with Bill Guerin. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. If it's VP of hockey ops or president of hockey operations, and Mike Modano multiple times during that interview that led to the article, talked about that he was going to be obviously he was going to be in the interviewing process every step of the way, and he's going to help Craig Leopold every step of the way that he's needed, and also that he would like to see his role with the Minnesota Wild grow in the coming years. And, well, read between the lines there. He wants to be in hockey operations too, just not boom right out of the gate here. Join the Wild. Oh, I'm the general manager now. Move away, Paul Fenton. I'm in charge, brother. But when he hadn't been an assistant GM yet. Again, Mike Modano definitely had a hand in this, and quite frankly, thank you. This is going to be a fun tandem. Modano and Guerin, I think, possibly for many years, might end up leading this team to something very special. I'd like to second Craig Leopold's thoughts on Bill Guerin acquiring his 5th Stanley Cup. That's the one we care about. We care about Bill Guerin acquiring his 5th Stanley Cup because obviously we have a pretty good idea who that would be with, and I hope it happens. I truly do. Very nice, positive future for the Minnesota Wild. Unfortunately, it's going to take a little while. It might get worse before it gets better. But it shouldn't get too much worse because not everything Fenton did was completely stupid. Obviously, the Donato trade wasn't completely stupid. You just could have gotten more, possibly. And it's not like he dumped off Greenway and such. And maybe Fiala could be that wonderful player. The Granlund situation, again, he was possibly going to demand up to $8 million a year. And the Wild were not ready to do that. Not ready to commit $8 million a year to Mikhail Granlund. Fiala not going to cost $8 million. Unfortunately, he still needs to be signed, Kevin Fiala and Louis Belpedio. Those are the two guys still pending at the moment, and most likely they'll get done. And that's pretty much all you're going to see with personnel moves, other than maybe some minor league / minor prospect trades like Gustav Bierman, that type of thing. With that said, that's probably what you're going to see for now, because Bill Guerin's got to do a better job of getting to know everybody than Paul Fenton ever could have hoped to do. And that's what he's going to do. Not only get to know people that are there, work with them, get to know them, this and that, get a vibe, see how they work with the organization, put them in proper roles, but also bring in more people to fill empty seats that are everywhere. Empty seats that are everywhere. That Paul Fenton literally burned the ground, scorched earth with the Minnesota Wild throughout the last 15 months, such as the world has never seen. Scorched earth such as the NHL has never seen. Well, at least in my opinion, it's really something. So, great hire, I do believe. Very optimistic. And one final thing, I guess, for some sad reason, Minnesota Wild Hardcore is no more. There was apparently some disagreements behind the scenes with some of the guys higher up, Jim Maddle and others, and the website's no more. So apparently I'm going to invite people that to join Minnesota Wild Global. That's basically like a new version of it, I guess you could say, started by guys like Chad Walski and such. Who was the main guy, though? It was Scott Cavendish. Yep, who is on my Facebook friend group. Of course, I knew him from Minnesota Wild Hardcore. Scott Cavendish started it, so that's something to look forward to. Minnesota Wild Global, I encourage you to join that as well. And, of course, MNW Prospects, absolutely love that page. MNW Prospects, I'm very proud to be a part of that still. I need to post more, and I do apologize to Pavel Burnett and Merrick Skyba and Justin out there. The guys are great. They do a good job with this page, keeping up with things. Pavel Burnett, yeah, oh man, love you guys. Pavel Burnett and Merrick Skyba out of the Czech Republic, and Justin locally as well in the United States at the very least. Minnesota Wild Prospects and Young Players. So do join those two pages if you haven't yet. Would be great. Would love to have you on board. And I'm not an admin for Minnesota Wild Global, but I'm what they call a founding member, I guess. So that's cool. I'm one of the founding fathers, man. No, I'm one of the founding members. So I'm more like Sam Adams, not John Adams. Okay, so look at it that way. Sam Adams not quite as high up as John Adams, where he actually was a president or stuff like that. So look at it that way. With that said, again, wishing all of you the best. Again, hopefully Bill Guerin is the hire that changes this franchise once and for all. I mean, we've been through so much here, obviously. We went through some good times early on. A little bit of luck early on. Again, you got the right coach, but the wrong general manager. Couldn't sustain what we had. Too many frayed relationships with Marian Gaborik, and along the way, things went very south, and we never got another Marian Gaborik type of player again. Hopefully Matthew Boldy could be that type of guy for the Minnesota Wild in the long-term future. So we can thank Paul Fenton for Matthew Boldy at the very least. He might end up being something very special. And just the hockey god, so to speak, for for having other teams take players ahead of Matthew Boldy rather than scooping him up and leaving us with others that might have been more likely to fall to our position rather than a guy like Boldy who could have gone significantly higher. So very good fortune there for Minnesota. Thank God for that. With that said, please join the Facebook page, facebook.com/bravethewild.minnesota. And then at Brave the Wild is the Twitter account. Thank you for joining that in advance. If you could, interact with me, 209-736-7877. 209-736-7877 is the voicemail. It takes 3 minutes, so again, treat it as a voicemail. It'll cut you off after 3 minutes. Other than that, use the, I got to recommend the audio submission route. I think that's a better way to go. Just record with your smart device, or if you have Audacity on a laptop or desktop computer, otherwise your smart device, free voice recording application. Treat it like a phone call, save it, and send it to paladinolive@yahoo.com. paladinolive@yahoo.com. Join the conversation that way, audio-wise, that we can have a fan interaction segment, and I'd be very proud to have you on board. Say where you're from, give your name, and say where you're from, like Joey from Golden Valley, Minnesota, or whoever. That would be great to have you on board in a big way. With that said, I'm wishing all of you a good rest of the summer, and boy, it's going to be preseason hockey before you know it, training camp, and you got your general manager out there. He'll probably be, it's going to be a lot of fun to keep up with this team the next couple of years and beyond.